Look, I have been to 47 worlds in my career as commander of the Korvoth Imperial Fleet, and let me tell you something, none of them were quite as underwhelming as this little blue marble spinning around an unremarkable star in the backwater section of the Orion Arm. My name is Zalrix, and I have the distinct honor, or perhaps the cosmic joke is on me, of leading the first contact mission with the species that calls itself humanity. When High Command assigned me this task, they practically threw a parade. Zalrix, they said, you are our finest diplomat, our most decorated commander. Surely you can handle one primitive species barely capable of leaving their own atmosphere. Sure, no problem. How hard could it be? The moment our scanners picked up their satellite networks, our intelligence officer, a four-armed Korvoth named Thryn, started laughing. Actually laughing. The kind of laugh you make when someone shows you a child's drawing and expects you to be impressed. Commander, he wheezed between chuckles. They are still using combustion engines for transportation. Combustion. They literally set controlled explosions underneath themselves and call it progress. I will admit, I found that amusing too. Charming even, in a watching ants build a hill sort of way. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the sheer absurdity of actually seeing them in person. When we entered their solar system, not a single weapons array locked onto us, not one. Their so-called defense network pinged us with radio waves, as if we were some lost freighter looking for directions to the nearest gas station. Our shields could withstand a supernova, and they were saying hello with the electromagnetic equivalent of 2 tin cans connected by string. Greetings, unknown vessel. Their transmission crackled through our systems. This is Earth Defense Command. Please state your intentions. Earth Defense Command. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Defense. These creatures had no idea what defense actually looked like. From orbit, I watched their cities sprawl across the continents, little clusters of lights and primitive architecture. Their largest vessels, the ones they sent into space with great fanfare and national pride, were barely the size of our shuttlecraft. Thryn pulled up their military specifications, and honestly, I felt a little bad for them. Their most advanced fighters moved at speeds we consider acceptable for recreational vehicles. Their missiles were, well, they were cute. Like watching a toddler throw a rock at a tank. Commander, my second officer Vrel reported from the tactical station. I have analyzed their defensive capabilities. At maximum output, their entire planetary arsenal could not penetrate our secondary shields. Should I calculate how long it would take to neutralize their military infrastructure? No need, I replied, waving a dismissive claw. We are here for diplomacy, remember. Integration, not conquest. Though I suspect the former will be significantly easier than anticipated. And then, we got our first visual of an actual human being. They sent us a live feed from their United Nations, whatever that meant, and I watched as their representative shuffled up to a podium. Shuffled. This creature did not glide, did not bound, did not even walk with proper predatory grace. It shuffled, like its limbs were barely capable of supporting its own body weight. The human, they called him Secretary General Patterson, stood there in a fabric covering, no natural armor whatsoever, no scales, no exoskeleton, no protective plating of any kind, just soft pinkish skin stretched over a skeletal frame that looked like it might snap in a stiff breeze. No claws, no fangs, no venom sacs, not even basic bioluminescence for communication. What kind of evolutionary dead end produces a species with no natural defenses? People of Earth, Patterson began, and his voice, dear ancestors, his voice, it was so weak and thin that our translators had to amplify it 3 times just to make it audible. We welcome our visitors from the stars with open arms and open hearts. Vrel leaned over to me. Sir, what are arms and hearts? Appendages and circulatory organs, I believe, I muttered back. Apparently they are offering to expose both. How trusting. Patterson continued his little speech about peace and cooperation and mutual understanding. All very sweet and naive, exactly what you would expect from a species that had never encountered anything more dangerous than itself. And believe me, after reviewing their biological specifications, that was not saying much. Their average height? Barely reaching my thorax. Their strength? Pitiful compared to Korvoth standards. We could lift 3 times our body weight, they struggled with half. Their environmental tolerances? Laughable. Too hot, they died. Too cold, they died. Wrong atmospheric mixture, they died. These things were so fragile they needed artificial habitats just to survive in most of the galaxy. Sir, Thrin called out, pulling up a holographic display. I have compiled a full analysis of human technological development. They have only achieved atomic energy in the last century. Their computer systems are still binary-based. Their medical science still involves physically cutting open their bodies to repair damage. It is almost adorable. Almost adorable. That became our unofficial assessment of humanity. Almost adorable. Like discovering a species of particularly clever rodents had learned to bang rocks together. I leaned back in my command chair, supremely confident, supremely satisfied with how this assignment would unfold. Begin preparations for landing, I ordered. Let us go down there and explain to these humans how the galaxy actually works. This should take, what, a few cycles at most? We will have them signed into the Imperial Trade Network before the orbital period ends. My crew nodded in agreement. After all, what could possibly go wrong with a species that could barely leave its own planet?
We
were the Korvath Empire, conquerors of star systems, masters of faster-than-light travel, veterans of 100 campaigns across the galactic arm. And they were humans. Soft, weak, technologically primitive humans who probably still believed they were alone in the universe. Oh, how gloriously, terrifyingly, catastrophically wrong I was. But I am getting ahead of myself. At that moment, descending through Earth's atmosphere in my diplomatic shuttle, watching their primitive aircraft scatter like frightened insects, I had never felt more in control of a first contact scenario. Spoiler alert, that feeling lasted approximately 48 hours. Then everything went sideways. The humans insisted on meeting at their newly constructed space station, which they called, and I am not making this up, the International Space Station Alpha. International. As if the squabbles between their tiny territorial divisions mattered on a galactic scale. It was like watching ants argue over which grain of sand belonged to which colony. Still, we agreed. Magnanimous in victory and all that. Besides, I was curious to see what their idea of a space station actually looked like. Spoiler alert, it was essentially a tin can with solar panels, held together with what appeared to be optimism and welding that would make any Korvath engineer weep. The docking procedure alone took 30 minutes because their airlocks were designed with all the sophistication of a pressure cooker. But fine, we could be patient. This was, after all, their first time hosting interstellar guests. How cute. When the airlock finally hissed open, I ducked through the opening, my full 2.3-meter frame causing several human technicians to actually stumble backward. Yes, I know. Intimidating presence, natural predator stance, the whole routine. I had done this dance 47 times before, remember? And then I met Ambassador Marcus Webb. He was waiting in what they called the conference module, standing beside a table that was hilariously too small for proper negotiations. The man, and I use that term loosely, was not particularly impressive at first glance. Average height for a human, maybe 1.8 meters, with graying hair at his temples, and these strange wrinkles around his eyes, that their species apparently developed with age. Wearing a dark fabric suit, no armor, no weapons, nothing. Commander Zalrix, he said, extending his hand forward in that bizarre human greeting gesture. Welcome aboard. I hope your journey was comfortable. I stared at the appendage, this hand with 5 tiny digits. No claws, just soft flesh and what looked like ridiculously fragile bones. Did he expect me to touch it? Was this some kind of submission display? Ambassador Webb, I replied, drawing myself up to full height, expanding my chest plates in the traditional Korvath greeting of dominance. It was standard protocol, nothing personal, just establishing the hierarchy early. I had done this with every species, and every species had responded appropriately, either by shrinking back in proper deference, or by matching the display with their own show of strength. Marcus Webb did neither. He just stood there, hands still extended, with this expression on his face that I could not quite read. Not fear, not submission. Something else. Something that made the scales along my spine itch with an unfamiliar sensation. Not a handshaker then, he said, lowering his arm. No worries, Commander. Shall we sit? Sit. He wanted to sit, as if we were equals about to have a friendly chat over fermented beverages. The audacity was almost refreshing in its naivety. I settled into the reinforced chair they had prepared, which creaked alarmingly under my weight, while Marcus simply pulled out a standard human chair and sat across from me, completely relaxed, completely at ease. His breathing was steady, measured, controlled. His eyes, these strange binocular organs humans used for vision, tracked my every movement with an intensity that seemed oddly out of place for such a prey species. "So," he began, folding his hands on the table, "I understand the Korvath Empire wishes to discuss Earth's integration into the galactic community. Trade agreements, territorial boundaries, the usual first contact protocols." "Precisely," I said, activating my datapad with perhaps more force than necessary. "The Empire has a standard package for developing worlds, technology sharing, resource allocation, and of course compliance with Imperial regulations. Very straightforward, very beneficial for your species." "Compliance," Marcus repeated, and there was something in his tone, something dry and almost mocking. "That is an interesting word choice." I felt my secondary eyelids flicker in annoyance. "It is the standard term, Ambassador. Surely you understand that a species as young as humanity requires guidance, structure, oversight. You have barely achieved interplanetary travel. The galaxy is vast and frankly dangerous. The Empire offers protection." "Protection?" he echoed again, leaning back in his chair. "From what exactly?" "From everything," I said, allowing exasperation to creep into my voice. "There are hostile species out there, territorial disputes, resource conflicts, phenomena your scientists have not even theorized about yet. Without Imperial backing, Earth would be vulnerable, isolated, easy prey for less diplomatic civilizations." Marcus nodded slowly, as if considering this. Then he smiled. Actually smiled, his lips pulling back to reveal these flat herbivore teeth that should have looked harmless but somehow did not. "Commander Zalrix," he said quietly, "let me be very clear about something. Earth appreciates the Empire's offer, truly, but we will not be accepting your standard package." I blinked, all three sets of eyelids cycling in confusion. "Excuse me." "We have reviewed the terms," Marcus continued, sliding a datapad of his own across the table, "and we have prepared a counter-proposal. Equal partnership, not subordinate membership. Mutual defense pact, not imperial protection. Open trade on our terms, not regulated commerce. And absolutely no military installations within our solar system without explicit Earth authorization." For a moment, just a moment, I could not speak. This human, this fragile little creature from a backwater planet, was negotiating with me, with the Korvath Empire, as if he had any leverage whatsoever. I started laughing. I could not help it. The sheer absurdity of the situation was too much. "Ambassador Webb," I managed between chuckles, "I appreciate your spirit, truly I do, but you must understand your position here. You have no bargaining power. Your military is primitive, your technology is centuries behind ours, your entire species could be blockaded with a single Imperial battle group. These demands are, and forgive my bluntness, completely unreasonable." Marcus did not laugh, did not flinch, did not show even the slightest hint of concern. He just sat there, watching me with those calculating eyes, waiting for me to finish my little performance. "Are they?" he asked, when I finally fell silent. "Unreasonable?" "Wildly so," I confirmed, waving a dismissive claw. "But fine, Ambassador, fine. If it makes you feel better, if it gives your people the illusion of having a say in their own integration, I will forward your counter-proposal to High Command. I am sure they will find it as amusing as I do." I was lying, of course. I had no intention of sending anything to High Command. In 3 cycles, maybe 4, I would return with a modified offer, slightly more favorable, and the humans would accept it gratefully. They always did. Every species followed the same pattern, posturing, negotiating, and eventually accepting reality. But as I prepared to leave, as I stood and prepared my exit with all the diplomatic grace expected of an Imperial commander, Marcus Webb stood as well, and he extended that hand again, that soft, weaponless hand. "Commander," he said, "I look forward to your response. I think you will find that Earth is full of surprises." Something in his voice made me pause. Something in that smile, that knowing, confident, almost pitying smile, sent that strange itch down my spine again. I ignored it, chalked it up to the unfamiliar atmosphere, the artificial gravity, the recycled air of this pathetic excuse for a space station. I shook his hand, feeling the grip, surprisingly firm for such a small appendage, and departed. It was only later, much later, after Thrin started his research, that I realized what that expression on Marcus Webb's face had been. It was not confidence. It was patience. The patience of a predator waiting for its prey to realize it had walked into a trap. Back aboard the flagship Dominator's Pride, I was in what humans would call a mood. That meeting had not gone according to plan, and while I maintained my external composure, internally I was irritated. No, scratch that. I was annoyed. These humans, with their ridiculous counter-demands, and their ambassador's infuriating calm, had gotten under my scales. Thrin, I barked into the ship's communication system. Get to my ready room, now, and bring everything, and I mean everything, you can find about human history, biology, and culture. I want to know what makes these creatures think they can negotiate with the Corveth Empire like equals. 20 minutes later, Thrin shuffled in, all 4 arms laden with data pads, looking entirely too cheerful for someone about to deliver an intelligence briefing. Commander, he said, settling into a chair with that annoying scientist enthusiasm. I have compiled a comprehensive report. You are going to find this fascinating. Fascinating, I muttered. Right, just tell me why these humans think they matter. Well, Thrin began, pulling up a holographic display. Let us start with human military history, shall we? According to their own records, humans have been engaged in continuous warfare for approximately 12,000 years. I waved a claw dismissively. Most species have conflict periods. That is hardly unusual. Commander, Thrin said, and his voice had taken on a strange quality. You misunderstand. I did not say they had war periods. I said continuous warfare.
As in, at no point in their recorded history has their entire species been at peace. Not once.
They have been fighting someone somewhere every single day for 12 millennia. That made me pause. Every day? Every single day. Thrin pulled up a data stream, numbers cascading across the hologram. In the last century alone, they have engaged in 2 planetary-scale conflicts they call world wars. The first one killed approximately 40 million of their own species. The second one, 85 million. And those are just the large ones, Commander. They have hundreds of smaller conflicts happening simultaneously without pause. I felt my mandibles click together in thought. They fight amongst themselves. Constantly, Thrin confirmed. Over resources, over ideology, over territory no larger than our shuttle bay, over religious interpretations, over insults, over perceived slights from conflicts 3,000 years old. They hold grudges across generations, Commander. Generations. They teach their offspring to hate each other before they teach them mathematics. Okay, that was mildly disturbing. But still, they are primitive, I said. Tribal. They will outgrow this once they achieve proper civilization. Thrin's expression, and I had known this officer for 15 years, was something I had never seen before. It was the look of someone who had seen something they could not quite believe. Sir, that brings me to Discovery 2. Human endurance capabilities. He pulled up a biological schematic. Humans evolved as what they call persistence hunters. Do you know what that means? Enlighten me, I said dryly. It means they chased their prey until it died of exhaustion. They would identify an animal, something faster, stronger, better armed than themselves, and they would just follow it for hours, sometimes days, walking, jogging, tracking, never stopping, never giving up, until the prey animal's cardiovascular system gave out and it collapsed. Then they would kill it at their leisure. I stared at the schematic. That is horrifying. It gets worse, Thrin said. And why did he sound almost excited about this? Their endurance is not limited to hunting. Humans can run for hours without stopping. Not sprint, obviously, but sustained movement over extreme distances. There are humans who run over 40 kilometers, for recreation. Commander, for fun. They call them marathons, and they do this voluntarily, often in groups, and they consider it entertainment. That is not entertainment, I protested. That is survival training. They also swim across oceans, climb mountains that reach into their planet's upper atmosphere, and throw themselves out of aircraft with nothing but fabric parachutes, again for recreation. Thrin was scrolling faster now, pulling up image after image of humans doing absolutely insane activities. Look at this. They call it base jumping. They leap off structures and terrain features, free falling until the last possible moment before deploying drag chutes. The fatality rate is significant, Commander, and they keep doing it. My scales were beginning to itch again. Why? Because, and this is a direct quote from one of their recreational jumping organizations, it makes them feel alive. Thryn looked up at me. They need to face death to feel alive, sir. Think about that. I did not want to think about that.
What about their pain tolerance?
Surely that is normal? Thryn actually laughed. It was not a happy laugh. Commander, humans have a sport called boxing, where they punch each other in the head repeatedly until one loses consciousness. They have another sport called rugby where they slam into each other at full speed with no protective equipment. They have another one called hockey where they do this on ice with bladed shoes while wielding sticks, and fighting is considered a normal part of the game. But their medical technology, I started, is mostly developed to fix damage they do to themselves. Thryn interrupted. Do you want to know the leading cause of human medical innovation? War and sports injuries. They hurt themselves so frequently that they have become exceptionally good at repair work. I stood up, pacing now, my tail lashing in agitation. Fine, they are more durable than they look. That still does not explain the attitude, the confidence, the negotiating position. Thryn said, and his voice dropped an octave. That brings me to point 4. Human recreational poisoning. Recreational what? He pulled up a chemical analysis. Humans deliberately consume toxins for enjoyment, Commander. This substance, ethanol, is a literal poison that causes neural inhibition, motor control loss, and can be fatal in sufficient quantities. They drink it socially. They have entire industries built around producing and distributing it. They call it alcohol, and consuming it is considered normal adult behavior. I sat back down, slowly. They also, Thryn continued, clearly on a roll now, consume a chemical compound called capsaicin, which triggers their pain receptors, specifically the ones that detect burning sensations. It causes them genuine distress, actual pain, and they put it on their food intentionally. They have competitions to see who can tolerate the most pain. They call it eating spicy food, and they consider it delicious. Why? I asked, and my voice came out smaller than intended. Why would any species do this? According to my research, because it makes them feel something. Thryn set down his datapad. Commander, I think we need to consider the possibility that humans are not a normal species. Their planet, this Earth, has extreme environmental variations, temperature swings of over 100 degrees, violent weather patterns, tectonic instability causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, predators that can kill them easily, diseases that regularly culled their populations. And they did not just survive this, sir. They thrived. They conquered their entire planet, every biome, every environment, from frozen wastelands to scorching deserts. He pulled up an image of Earth, rotating slowly. This is not a garden world, Commander. This is a death world, and humans are its apex predator, not because they are the strongest or the fastest, but because they are the most persistent, the most adaptable, and apparently the most insane. I wanted to argue. I wanted to dismiss this as exaggeration, as Thryn getting carried away with his research, as anything other than what it clearly was. The truth. There is one more thing, Thryn said quietly. I found a human saying that I think is relevant. They have thousands of these sayings, little phrases that encapsulate their philosophy. This one stuck with me. He pulled up the text and I read it 3 times before I understood the implications. What does not kill me makes me stronger. We sat there in silence, Commander and Science Officer, both staring at those words, both realizing the same terrible thing. We had not found a primitive species ready for guidance. We had found a species that weaponized adversity. Get me everything, I said finally. Everything on human military capabilities, human cultural practices, human psychology. I want to know exactly what we are dealing with before the next negotiation. Thryn nodded, gathering his datapads. Commander, if I may offer a personal observation. Go ahead. Ambassador Webb's smile makes a lot more sense now, does it not? He left before I could respond. Which was probably wise, because he was absolutely terrifyingly correct. 3 days after Thryn's research bombshell, we received an invitation from Ambassador Webb.
All
A cultural exchange, he called it. An opportunity for the Korvath delegation to observe human society, traditions, and capabilities in a relaxed, informal setting. I should have known better. I really should have. But pride, that wonderful Korvath trait that had carried us across the stars, made me accept. After all, we could not show weakness, could not show that Thren's little history lesson had rattled us. We were the Korvath Empire. We had seen everything. Spoiler alert, we had not seen everything. The humans invited us to something called Fort Bragg, which they described as a cultural and educational facility. Educational. Right. The moment our shuttle touched down and I saw the rows of armed personnel, the assault courses, the firing ranges, I realized we had been invited to a military base. "Welcome to Fort Bragg," Marcus Webb said, greeting us personally, flanked by a human in combat fatigues, who introduced himself as Colonel Jackson Pierce. "We thought you might enjoy seeing how we prepare our citizens for service." Service. Such a pleasant word for what I was about to witness. Colonel Pierce was built differently than Marcus, broader, more muscled, with scars visible on his exposed forearms, and a handshake that, when he offered it to Vrel, actually made my second officer wince. "Gentlemen," Pierce said, and his voice had this casual roughness to it, like grinding stone, "we have prepared a small demonstration of our basic training protocols. Nothing fancy, just the standard stuff." Standard stuff. Those words would haunt me. We were led to an outdoor facility where approximately 30 human soldiers stood in formation, wearing identical gray clothing and boots. They ranged in age, I estimated, from barely mature to well into their prime years. They stood motionless, eyes forward, breathing controlled. "This is Alpha Company," Pierce explained. "Mix of infantry, special operations candidates, and some cross-training personnel. Today is what we call a light PT day." PT, Thren whispered to me, stood for physical training. Light day. "We will start with a warm-up run," Pierce announced. "Standard 5 miles, 20-minute time limit." 5 miles. I did the conversion in my head. 8 kilometers, in 20 minutes. That was a pace of, wait, that could not be right. "Apologies, Colonel," I interjected. "Did you say 20 minutes for 8 kilometers?" "That is the requirement, yes sir," Pierce confirmed. "Though most of these soldiers will finish in 16 to 18 minutes. Like I said, it is a light day." The humans took off, and we followed in a hover platform to observe. At first it seemed normal enough. Steady pace, controlled breathing, organized formations. Then 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. They did not slow down. Not one of them. Thren was monitoring their vital signs with our portable scanners. "Commander," he hissed, "their heart rates are elevated but stable. Their body temperature is rising but within manageable ranges, and they are sweating profusely, which appears to be a cooling mechanism. They are not stopping." At 18 minutes, the first humans crossed the finish line. Not walking, not limping, not collapsing, jogging. Some of them were barely breathing hard. "Acceptable," Pierce called out as the last soldier finished at 19 minutes and 30 seconds.
"Hydrate, people. We have got combat drills in 10.
10 minutes. They were resting for 10 minutes after running 8 kilometers. All looked at me. "Sir, I could not run 8 kilometers without stopping. None of our crew could." "I am aware," I muttered, watching as the humans drank water, stretched their limbs, and chatted casually as if they had just taken a pleasant stroll. The combat demonstration was worse. So much worse. 2 humans entered a marked circle. No weapons, no armor, just themselves. Pierce explained this was called hand-to-hand combat training. Basic close-quarters fighting. Basic. What followed was, well, brutal is the only word for it. They struck each other, grappled, threw each other to the ground with impacts that should have caused serious injury. Joints bent at angles that looked wrong. Bodies slammed into packed dirt hard enough to raise dust clouds. And through it all, they kept moving, kept fighting, kept getting back up. "Notice the efficiency," Marcus Webb said quietly. Beside me, he had appeared at some point during the demonstration, watching his species with what I can only describe as casual pride. No wasted movement. Every strike has purpose. We have been refining these techniques for thousands of years, Commander. Humans have always been very good at finding new ways to hurt each other. One soldier got the other in what Pierce called a chokehold, cutting off blood flow to the brain. The trapped soldier tapped the ground twice and they immediately separated, both standing, both ready to go again. That tap means surrender, Webb explained. We developed that system because otherwise people tended to fight until they lost consciousness or died. This way is more efficient for training purposes. More efficient than fighting to unconsciousness. That was their alternative. That was the thing they were trying to avoid. How often do your soldiers train like this? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Daily, Pierce answered. Physical training 6 days a week, combat drills 4 days a week, weapons qualifications twice a month, tactical exercises constantly. We believe in staying sharp. Daily. They did this every day, by choice, as a career. Then came the weapons demonstration, and any remaining illusions I had about human fragility evaporated like water on a hot engine core. They started with small arms, pistols and rifles that seemed primitive by our standards, but the accuracy, oh, ancestors, the accuracy, human, after human stepped up to the firing line and put rounds through targets at distances that our own soldiers would struggle with. Headshots, center mass, moving targets. They made it look easy. Our marksmanship standards are pretty high. A young soldier could not have been more than 25 years old, mentioned casually while reloading. You have to qualify expert level just to make it into most combat units. This is just the basics, you know. Just the basics. Then they demonstrated what they called crew-served weapons, heavy machine guns that fired hundreds of rounds per minute, grenade launchers, anti-armor rockets. Each weapon operated with practiced efficiency by humans who looked like they could operate them in their sleep. That one, Pierce said, pointing to a particularly nasty-looking weapon system, is our M2 Browning, 50 caliber machine gun. Been in service for over 100 years. We keep using it because, well, it still works really well at making things stop existing. Making things stop existing. That was how they described it. Not neutralizing threats, not defensive capabilities, making things stop existing. A soldier, probably 30 years old, covered in old scars and new sweat, walked past us carrying ammunition containers that had to weigh 40 kilograms each, 2 of them, 1 in each hand. He was not even breathing hard. Light training day, huh? He said to Pierce with a grin. Light training day, Pierce confirmed. Tomorrow we have the ruck march with full combat loads, so I figured we would take it easy today. Easy. This was easy. I turned to Marcus Webb and whatever expression was on my face made him smile. That smile again. That patient, knowing, terrifying smile. Commander Zalrix, he said quietly. Humanity has spent its entire existence solving problems, and our biggest problem for most of our history was other humans. We have gotten very, very good at solving problems. Do you understand what I am telling you? I understood. Oh, I understood perfectly. Every weapon, every tactic, every training protocol, every bit of that casual, horrifying efficiency had been developed to fight themselves. These capabilities were not theoretical, not parade ground showmanship, not designed to intimidate primitive species. They were practical, proven, and refined through thousands of years of continuous warfare against opponents who were just as adaptable, just as persistent, just as insane as they were. The counter-proposal, I said, my voice coming out hoarse. The one we discussed. Yes? Marcus asked pleasantly. I think perhaps it warrants serious consideration. I think perhaps it does, Marcus agreed. Shall we discuss it over lunch? We are having barbecue. That is meat cooked over open flame for extended periods. I think you will find it enlightening. They cooked their food with fire, on purpose, for enjoyment. As we walked toward the dining facility, I contacted Thrin on my personal communicator. To start preparing a revised report for High Command, I said quietly. Title it Reassessment of Human Threat Capabilities. Mark it urgent. Sir, Thrin responded. How urgent? I watched a group of human soldiers jogging past, singing something they called a cadence, grinning at each other like they were having the time of their lives. Extremely, I said. Extremely urgent. Behind me I heard Colonel Pierce laugh at something one of his soldiers said. It was not a cruel laugh or a menacing laugh. It was worse. It was the laugh of someone who was genuinely enjoying themselves. That was the moment, right there, when I began to panic. The emergency council convened aboard the Dominator's Pride exactly 4 hours after the Fort Bragg demonstration. Every senior officer was present. Thrin had been working non-stop since we returned, and the atmosphere in the conference room could best be described as controlled hysteria. "All right," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. "Someone tell me something that will make me feel better about this situation." Silence. Wonderful. Varel spoke first. "Commander, I have been reviewing tactical assessments. If we were to engage Earth in direct conflict, accounting for their primitive technology, we would still win. Eventually, probably. The casualty projections, however, are unacceptable." "Define unacceptable," I said, though I was not sure I wanted to hear it. 40% losses, minimum, before achieving orbital superiority. Possibly 60% if they employ asymmetric warfare tactics, which, based on their history, they absolutely would. Varel's voice was steady, professional, terrified. "Sir, they have nuclear weapons, thousands of them. They have chemical weapons they agreed not to use on each other but technically still possess. And, according to Thrin's research, when humans feel threatened, they stop following their own rules very, very quickly." Thrin stood, activating the holographic display. "Commander, it gets so much worse than weapons. I have been analyzing human culture, specifically their entertainment and educational systems, and I have found a pattern that is deeply disturbing." The display showed images of human books, films, games. "Look at their fiction, sir. Look at what they create for enjoyment. Every single scenario involves conflict. Every single story involves humans encountering something alien, something unknown, something more powerful than themselves. And what do? He zoomed in on titles. They fight it. Every time. They have thousands of stories about alien invasions, and in every single one the humans win. Not through diplomacy, not through surrender, through violence and determination, and refusing to give up even when logically they should." "It is fiction," I protested weakly. "Fantasy." "Is it?" Thrin challenged. "Or is it practice? Look at this. These are video games. Interactive simulations that their children play. This one is called Call of Duty, where they simulate modern warfare. This one is Halo, where they fight alien empires. This one is XCOM, where they defend Earth from extraterrestrial invasion. They train their offspring, their actual children, in combat tactics through entertainment." He pulled up more data. "They're sports, Commander. Every single one is either simulated hunting or simulated warfare. Soccer, that is tribal territory. Combat. Basketball, that is resource acquisition. Under pressure. American football, that is literally armored combat for territorial gain. Hockey, we already discussed, is violence on ice." The hologram shifted to show Earth itself, rotating slowly. "But here is the real problem, sir. Earth is what xenobiologists classify as a Class 12 death world. Do you know what the average classification is for habitable planets? Class 3. Class 4 if you are feeling adventurous. Class 12 means everything on that planet is actively trying to kill you." Thrin's forearms moved frantically, pulling up chart after chart. Gravity is 0.98 standard, which seems normal until you realize that is almost exactly what we use for combat conditioning. Their atmospheric pressure varies wildly with altitude. Their weather includes phenomena like tornadoes, hurricanes, blizzards, heat waves that can kill in hours. Their tectonic plates are actively moving, causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions regularly. "And the predators," he continued, voice rising. "Oh, ancestors. The predators. They have land predators that can run 70 kilometers per hour. They have ocean predators with thousands of teeth that can smell blood from kilometers away. They have microscopic predators, bacteria and viruses, that killed hundreds of millions of them before they developed medical science. And they survived all of it, sir. They competed with all of it, and won." I needed to see this for myself. Against Thrin's protests, I accessed what humans called the Internet, their global information network. Surely, I thought, surely there would be something normal here, something reassuring. I was wrong. The first thing I found was something called a meme. It showed a human holding a beverage, with text that read, "Hold my beer and watch this." Thrin explained this was a common phrase humans said right before doing something monumentally stupid and dangerous. They had an entire category of humor based on their own poor decision-making. I found videos of humans deliberately injuring themselves for entertainment. They called it jackass. I found compilations of humans failing at various activities, falling, crashing, colliding, and the other humans watching were laughing. They found their own pain funny. I found their jokes. Oh, ancestors, their jokes. Half of them were about death, mortality, existential dread, and the other half were about how they were going to die doing something stupid, and they accepted this as inevitable. Why do humans climb mountains? One joke asked. Because they are there was the answer. Not for resources, not for strategic advantage. Because they are there, they risk death for the concept of accomplishment. I found their music. So much of it was about violence, loss, defiance, refusing to surrender. They had entire genres dedicated to aggression, to chaos, to rebellion against authority. And then, buried in a historical database, I found a quote that made my blood run cold. It was from a human military strategist named Vegetius, written almost 2,000 years ago. If you want peace, prepare for war. I read it again, and again, and again. They did not prepare for war when peace failed. They prepared for war to maintain peace. The violence was not a last resort, it was a constant state of readiness, a fundamental part of their civilization. Humans were always ready for violence, always prepared, always training, always thinking about the next conflict. Peace was not their natural state. It was something they actively fought to maintain through the threat of overwhelming retaliation. They are not primitives, I said, aloud to my empty ready room. They are survivors of a planetary-scale death match that lasted millions of years, and we invited them to join the galactic community. We offered them protection. I started laughing. Hysterical, slightly unhinged laughter. Protection. We offered protection to a species that considered extinction-level events a minor inconvenience to overcome. The emergency meeting with Ambassador Marcus Webb was scheduled for the next morning. I did not sleep that night. Could not sleep. When Marcus arrived, he was alone. No military escort, no weapons, just that calm, patient expression he always wore. Like he had all the time in the universe. Like he already knew how this would end. Commander Zalrix, he said, taking his seat. You wanted to discuss the treaty terms. We have reconsidered our initial position, I said, and my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Your counter-proposal is acceptable. Equal partnership, mutual defense, open trade on your terms. No military installations without authorization, all of it. Acceptable. Have you now? Marcus asked, leaning back in his chair. That tone, that inflection told me he knew exactly why we had changed our position. That is quite a shift from 3 days ago, Commander. What changed your mind? I could have lied. Should have lied. Maintained some dignity, some pretense of diplomatic negotiation. But I was tired, rattled, and honestly I wanted this to be over. We researched your species more thoroughly, I admitted. Your history, your culture, your capabilities, and we determined that the Corvath Empire has no interest in conflict with Earth. None whatsoever. Marcus nodded slowly. Wise decision. You knew, I said, accusation creeping into my voice. At that first meeting, you knew we would do this research. You knew what we would find. That demonstration at Fort Bragg, that was not for cultural exchange, that was a warning. It was an educational opportunity, Marcus corrected gently. We wanted to make sure you understood what you were dealing with. Saves time, prevents misunderstandings, avoids unnecessary conflict. We find honesty to be the best policy in diplomatic relations. He slid a datapad across the table. I have had my legal team draft the final treaty. I think you will find the terms very reasonable. Earth gets autonomy within our system, voting rights in the Galactic Council, unrestricted access to trade networks, and mutual defense agreements with all member species. In exchange, we agree to follow established galactic laws, participate in collective security arrangements, and share our medical and agricultural technologies. I scanned the document. It was more than fair. It was generous. Earth was offering genuine partnership, real cooperation, actual valuable contributions. They were not trying to dominate, not demanding special privileges beyond basic sovereignty. They just wanted to be left alone to do their thing, and in exchange they would play nice with the rest of the galaxy. This is acceptable, I said, pressing my claw to the signature pad. Excellent, Marcus said, standing and extending his hand once more. I took it this time, felt that firm, controlled grip. Commander Zaurix, it has been a pleasure doing business with reasonable people. I look forward to a long and mutually beneficial relationship between Earth and the Corvath Empire. Reasonable people. That was what he called us, because we had seen the reality of the situation, and chosen not to be stupid about it. As he left, I sat alone in the conference room for a long time. My report to High Command was brief, direct, and marked with every priority flag I could attach to it. Subject: immediate treaty ratification. Required: Earth situation. The treaty has been signed. Approve it. Do not question it. Do not attempt to renegotiate it. Do not under any circumstances antagonize humanity. Earth is a Class 12 death world. Humanity is the apex predator of said death world. They have been engaged in continuous warfare for 12,000 years. They are persistent, adaptable, and biologically designed for endurance and violence. Their entire culture is oriented around overcoming obstacles through determination and force. Recommendation: give them whatever they want. Establish favorable relations. Hope they never decide we are a problem that needs solving. I also sent a galactic-wide bulletin to every species in the communication network. Warning: new species designated humanity has achieved interstellar contact capability. YUG exercise extreme caution in all interactions. Do not threaten, do not posture, do not assume primitive technology equals primitive capability. Humanity is a survivor species from a death world environment. Treat with respect and maintain diplomatic courtesy at all times. 3 days later, I received responses. Dozens of them, other species who had been monitoring Earth, who had done their own research, who had come to the same horrifying conclusions we had. The consensus was unanimous. Humanity was not to be trifled with. The irony, the beautiful, absurd irony, was that humans still thought they had made friends. They were excited about joining the galactic community, eager to share and learn and cooperate. They had no idea that half the galaxy was now terrified of them. Personal log: Commander Zaurix, Corvath Imperial Fleet, Day 47 of the Earth First Contact mission. I have been thinking about humans a lot lately, probably too much, if I am being honest, trying to understand them, trying to reconcile what I see with what I know. They smile while discussing destruction. They laugh while facing danger. They turn survival into sport and disaster into entertainment. They poison themselves for fun. They throw themselves out of aircraft for recreation. And they consider it a light day when they run 8 kilometers and practice beating each other unconscious. Their warships, I learned, have names like Indomitable, Vengeance, Enterprise, Defiance, not peaceful names, not exploratory names, names that promise violence to anyone foolish enough to threaten them. They have a saying: speak softly and carry a big stick. That is their approach to diplomacy. Politeness backed by the implicit promise of overwhelming retaliation. And yet they are not monsters. They are not cruel for cruelty's sake. They offered fair terms, genuine partnership, real cooperation. They could have demanded subjugation, could have flexed their capabilities and forced concessions. They did not. Because despite everything, despite the violence in the history and the endless capacity for warfare, humans actually want peace. They just refuse to be vulnerable in pursuing it. We came to Earth expecting to find primitives, children taking their first steps into a larger universe. Instead, we found the universe's most dangerous species, and they were kind enough to let us leave with our dignity intact. My final thought, the one that keeps me awake during sleep cycles, is this: we spent thousands of years searching for intelligent life in the universe. We built telescopes, sent probes, explored countless systems. And when we finally found intelligent life, truly dangerous, genuinely terrifying intelligent life, we should probably have just left it alone. But it is too late now. Humanity is awake, humanity is aware, and humanity is heading for the stars. The galaxy will never be the same. And honestly, I am not sure if that is a good thing or a terrifying thing. Probably both. End log.